Hello, my name is Tegan, and today I'm going to be giving you a speech on the branches of behavioral learning. So, what is behavioral learning? Behavioralism is a school of thought in psychology. It's one of the few schools of thought that scientists and psychologists learn off of. And learning is a change in an organism's behavior or thought as a result of an experience. So, what do you get when you put those two together? You get the behavioral learning theory, which is learning about a behavior through an experience, through the environment. One of the things that I love about learning and teaching others about psychology is I've been a psychology student for 3 years now. I think it's very fun, and I'm hoping I can get you guys to a somewhat understanding of what these are, because there's a lot that goes into these, and there's a lot more I could go into, but then we'd be here all day. So I'm just going to give you on the surface of what these types of behavior learnings are. So what are the three types that I'm going to be explaining to you? They are classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. And with each of these, I'm going to be giving you who found this type of learning, the definition of it, what it is, and a popular experiment that goes along that's very popular with these types of learning. So our first one is classical conditioning. Classical conditioning was founded by Ivan Pavlov. He's a Russian psychologist that was born in 1849. It's a very old finding, but so classical conditioning is a form of learning in which animals come to respond to a previous neutral stimulus that has been paired with another stimulus that elicits an automatic response. So it's wanting one thing, this certain thing, to cause a response that is not a normal response that someone would give to something. And within those, you need these 5 things. You need a neutral stimulus, an unconditioned stimulus, an unconditioned response, a conditioned stimulus, and a conditioned response. So a very popular experiment that goes along with classical conditioning is Pavlov's dogs. So naturally, when this dog was shown food, it would salivate. And what Pavlov wanted was this dog to salivate at the sight of hearing a bell ring. So to get that dog to salivate from food to a bell, he needed classical conditioning to do. So the food the food was a stimulus. It's something that would cause an automatic response, an unconditioned response, in the dog to salivate. The automatic response and the unconditioned response are the same thing, in my example. And then next, Pavlov would introduce a bell to the dog. He would ring the bell. The dog would have no response. The bell was a neutral stimulus. It didn't have effect on the dog. It wasn't a good effect or a bad effect. It just had no effect. And then the dog was later introduced to the sight of his food and the ringing of the bell, which he would salivate to because he'd see his food. So later, they kept doing that, and then later the dog would just be introduced to the sound of the bell, and he would salivate. That bell went from being a neutral stimulus to a conditioned stimulus because the dog was conditioned to respond to hearing the bell with "there's food coming." So that dog was able to have a conditioned response of salivating at hearing the bell. The next example is operant conditioning. This was founded by B.F. Skinner. He is an American psychologist that was born in 1904, so this is a bit more recent. Operant conditioning is learning is controlled by consequences of an organism's behavior. So in those, you have 2 ways that, 2 consequences that could happen through a behavior. You have a reinforcement and a punishment. A reinforcement would be you being given something to promote a behavior. And then a punishment would be something being taken away to make a behavior stop. And then within those, there's positive and negatives. So a positive punishment would be you being given a piece of candy for completing your homework. It's promoting a behavior by giving you something. A negative reinforcement is taking something away to promote a behavior. So, taking away to promote. So a kid, and then on the punishment scale, a positive punishment would be giving something to stop a behavior. And the negative punishment would be taking away to stop a behavior. So taking away a toy to stop your kid from being mean to other children. A popular experiment done with that is the Skinner box. So a rat or a pigeon would be locked inside this box, and whenever he would press the lever, they'd be given food. That would be a positive reinforcement. Skinner was looking to see if animals could learn through operant conditioning, if they can learn that what the consequences of their actions are, and if they can keep remembering that and keep doing that and see if they retain that. And often to see if animals can learn through punishments, he would often electrocute the animal through the floor and see if they would learn that by pressing a lever, it would end the electrocution. And the third way of learning is through observational learning. This one is the easiest to explain and to understand. So this is observational learning. It was founded by Albert Bandura. He's an American-Canadian psychologist, born in 1925, so this is even more recent. So that is learning through observing, watching someone do a behavior and retaining that information and replicating that later. A very popular experiment that was done with observational learning is the Bobo doll experiment. So a Bobo doll is like, as you can see in these pictures, it's like this big circular clown toy that children had. And one group of children would be placed in a room and would see these adults playing with the toy nicely. And the other group of kids would see the adults playing aggressively with the toy, punching it, throwing it, saying bad phrases at it. Just treating the toy aggressively. And when the kids who watched the adults play with the toy nicely would go into the room, they would also replicate that same behavior by playing with the toy nicely. But the kids who saw the aggressiveness and the bad side of the adult taking the anger out on the doll, the kids would also do the same thing and would be aggressive to the doll. So that showed that aggressiveness can be observational and other behaviors are observational. So in conclusion, I have discussed with you the three major ways of behavioral learning. These three ways are classical conditioning, which is pairing a stimulus together to receive a certain response from another stimulus. Operant conditioning, which is behaviors are learned from consequences, positive, negative, reinforcement, punishment. And observational learning, in which you learn through observations and watching and mirroring others. I want to thank you guys for listening, and I hope that you are now aware of the different types of learnings and can use them in your new day-to-day life. And these are my references. Thank you.